Hello everyone, Charles Watts here, the Arsenal correspondent at Goal, joining you for part 2 of my international break Q&A. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, it's down there somewhere. It got released yesterday, so thank you very much for watching. If you have watched it, but if you haven't, please do give it a watch. As I said on that video, I've split this into a few parts because there was just so many questions from you guys to the tweet that I put out saying I was going to be doing this, and I didn't want to do it in one big long chunk that was well over an hour long that would just bore the hell out of you. So I've tried to make it a little bit more watchable for you guys and split it up into a few parts, which I will release day by day. Right, not going to spend any more time rattling on. I'll get straight into this because there's lots and lots of questions to go through. So let's start with Arsenal pitch side. After impressing in the Europa League, how disappointing is it that Willock hasn't even made the squad for next league game? With our lack of creativity, what are the chances of Smith Rowe getting regular opportunities to impress? Is Balogun likely to sign a new contract? So a few questions there from Arsenal pitch side. I'll try and take them one by one. In terms of Willock, I think I actually touched on it in yesterday's video. I'm really disappointed in that he didn't get a go in the Premier League. I thought it was poor from Arteta that it doesn't show much reward for playing so well. I'm sure it was a bit of a sucker punch for Willock. What more does he have to do to get a shot in the Premier League, even if it's just in the squad, not just the starting 11? He played so well against Mulder, man of the match display, scored his goal, and certainly just offers something a little bit different. Something they're lacking at the moment in the Premier League is in a midfielder in the central areas who makes the runs into the box, who drags defenders away, just a little bit of unpredictability. Obviously he's had chances in the Premier League before, hasn't really taken them, but what more can you do? If you get your chance in Europa League, you play really well, you score a goal, you're man of the match, surely you deserve a little bit of reward for that and get in the Premier League squad. So I was a little bit disappointed with Arteta from that, I have to admit. In terms of Smith Rowe getting regular opportunities, look, he's just got to stay fit. That's the problem with Smith Rowe. He's just not fit and hasn't been for a long time. He just keeps getting injuries. Every time it looks like he's going to play or get an opportunity in the Europa League, perhaps, he gets injured and picks up a new problem. And until he shakes that off, then he's not going to be able to get regular game time. And it's unfortunate because we hear that Mikel Arteta is a big fan of Emile Smith Rowe, but he's just not fit, and it's he needs to stay fit. And because you look at him, look at the qualities he has and the qualities that Arsenal lack at the moment, and Smith Rowe has them. So he is a really exciting player and one you want to see more of, but he just needs to stay fit, because if you don't, things move very, very quickly, and suddenly you find yourself being a 20, 21, 22-year-old player who's not played much football, and then it's very hard to make the breakthrough because you're sort of behind everyone else in the pecking order. So hopefully he can stay fit and can have a bit of a chance. In terms of Balogun, he's likely to sign a new contract. I haven't heard that much has changed with that. It's been interesting to see he's getting more and more opportunities in training under Mikel Arteta. They're obviously played in the Europa League against Dundalk as well. I think we'll probably see Balogun in the latter stages of the group stages once Arsenal's qualification is secured, which hopefully it will be after the away game in Mulder. But in terms of that new contract, I haven't heard that there's been much change from the situation, which at present, or certainly it was last time I heard from people that I know at the club, the likelihood is he was going to be leaving, and the contract offer that had been on the table had been removed because the talks hadn't come to an agreement. Data, I think it is, are Edouard and Szoboszlai the only creative targets Arsenal have in mind, and which striker do Arsenal have in mind to replace Lacazette next season? Edouard and Szoboszlai are certainly the two who sort of tick the boxes at the moment for Arsenal. We know the interest in Edouard that nearly happened in the summer, didn't get it through. Szoboszlai's a player they've been looking at for a long time, as are loads of clubs at the moment because of his performances over in Austria. In terms of other creative targets, I haven't heard anyone at the moment. I'm just not expecting Arsenal to do much in January because of the whole financial side of things in football at the moment. I think we're much more likely to see a quiet January with all clubs, and then the summer is when we'll probably see some more deals being done. And I haven't heard anything in terms of really the creative players they're looking at. I know of the interest in Edouard. The interest in Szoboszlai is pretty public already. The agents already talked about that. In terms of which striker Arsenal had in mind to replace Lacazette, I've already spoken about this before. I know that they are very keen on Edouard up at Celtic. He's a player they've watched a lot. They really like. There was talk in the summer that they'd made a bid for him. I was told that wasn't the case and there'd been no firm offer for Edouard from Arsenal, but they're scouts have certainly been watching him for a long time. He's someone who's been right at the top of the list for potential targets when Arsenal do look to bring in a striker, and I think they're certainly going to need to bring in a striker this summer, and it wouldn't surprise me if Edouard is someone they do make a concerted effort to try and sign, but we'll have to wait and see. Footy Louvre says, please discuss Auba playing out on the wing instead of centre forward and what needs to happen for him to play centre forward. Well, hopefully Aston Villa was what needed to happen for Aubameyang to play centre forward, because I can't imagine Mikel Arteta is going to watch that performance and not think that he has to change things in an attacking sense, because it was so poor. I thought Lacazette had an absolute shocker, and I don't see how Lacazette can start after the international break away at Leeds. I think you've got to... the Villa game just felt like a match where it has to lead to some sort of change, because it was so poor on so many levels. And I think the front three, when you're playing as badly as Aubameyang, Lacazette and Willian are, something has to change. And for me, Arteta must be looking at that and thinking, right, what can I do differently? And what you can do differently is play your best centre forward as the centre forward. It's easier to justify playing Auba on the left-hand side when he's scoring goals and getting chances like he was last season. But the fact is he's not now. He hasn't scored in open play since the game at Fulham on the opening weekend of the season. He's only had 10 shots in the whole of the Premier League this season. I think that puts him 48th or 42nd, something like that, in terms of shots on goal. Kane's had 38 and Auba has had 10. So Kane's had nearly 4 times as many shots as Aubameyang. That's just not acceptable. And when you're not creating chances, then the few that you do create, you have to score. And at the moment, you've got Lacazette in the centre who's not taking those chances. He missed a sitter against Villa, he missed a sitter against Leicester, he missed a sitter at Anfield, and those misses are costing Arsenal big time. You need Aubameyang in the centre, and I'm sure that Arteta's going to look at it now and think, right, we're going to have to change things up after the international break. And for me, you've got to play Aubameyang centre forward, you've got to play Saka, I'd move to left wing, and I'd play Pepe on the right, and move things around a little bit. I'd change the formation as well, because I think 3-4-3 has had its time now, especially if Partey's fit after the international break. I think you've got to go to the back four and start changing things up a little bit, because Arsenal are just looking so bad going forward that something has to change. Because if you're not scoring goals, you're not going to win football matches, plain and simple. Invincible Arse says, is Guendouzi looking likely to come back, or are we going to cash in? If we do, will we go for Samara to fill his void? For me, Guendouzi's Arsenal career, I'd be very surprised if he comes back and has a bit of a renaissance. Had the big fallout with Mikel Arteta. There was no way back for him after that. Didn't play at the start of the season, even though Arteta did let him back into training. And I'd be very surprised. I think Arsenal are hoping he has a good season in Germany and they can get a deal done for him in the summer before he enters the final year of his current contract. So I'd be very surprised if Guendouzi comes back. I think cashing in is by far the more likely option. In terms of Samari, I mean, he's a player that Arsenal like and have watched before. They were kind of weighing him up in the summer. Do you go for that? Do you go for Partey? They opted for Partey, the more experienced player who's ready to hit the ground running. Samari is obviously pretty raw and it's a bit of a work in progress, and Arsenal didn't really want that in the midfield. They wanted to cut someone who could come in and make the difference right now, which is why they've gone for Partey. I'm not sure they'll go for him again in next summer either, Samara, to be honest. Gunas Stahl, I think it is, says, do you think it's likely that Martinelli will even figure when he returns from injury, or will he not be favoured by Mikel? Interesting one, because obviously when Mikel first came in, we saw Martinelli struggle for a bit of game time. Not initially. And I remember when Aubameyang got sent off at Crystal Palace, it was Martinelli who played centre forward. He scored, I can't remember who it was, he scored in the home game at the Emirates in one of Arteta's first home games, and then he went and scored the goal at Chelsea. But after that, once Aubameyang came back, Martinelli really struggled for game time. I think he will play when he returns, as long as he looks sharp and he's in decent form. I think he'll certainly figure. He can play central striker, he can play left wing. Arsenal struggling for goals at the moment. If that's still the case when he gets back fit, I think there's no reason why Martinelli won't be playing a fair amount of football. I can't wait to see him back, to be honest. Certainly looks like he's bulked up as well. He's pretty big now, Martinelli. He's been certainly spending his time while he's injured in the gym. It'll be interesting to see if he's still got that electric pace that he did have before, if he's a little bit slower now. He's bulked up so much. Metonic and Lime says, how many transfer windows will it take? It seems like we have been on a never-ending treadmill for way too long. Well, that's what happens when you recruit badly, and Arsenal have recruited pretty badly in years gone by. When you don't get your recruitment right, it takes a long time to get yourselves back to a sort of top level, and Arsenal's recruitment hasn't been great. I think this summer they've recruited really well. I think the spine of the team has been improved immeasurably with Partey and Gabriel coming in. I think now the big thing is improving things going forward. I think it's going to take a bit of time to do that. I think Arsenal have got to sort out what they're going to do with their attackers. If they're going to play a front three, which you think they are, because that tends to be what all teams are doing, no matter what formation, 3-4-3, 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3, they're all front three players. And I think Arsenal, although we talk a lot about the lack of creativity, I'm not sure that's necessarily the biggest thing. I just think it's that the forwards aren't scoring. When you look at Liverpool, they don't really have, they've got Thiago they've just brought in, who obviously can create from deeper positions. But then you look at the other players, they're not really, they haven't got an out-and-out number 10 type player. It's just the fact that their creativity and their goals all comes from from the front two, really, because Firmino doesn't score, but he creates a lot with his movement. But the two wide players score. And you kind of look at Tottenham as well. Son and Kane, they get the majority of the goals. They haven't really got a number 10 type player. And Ndombele, maybe, but I wouldn't really call him a number 10. But they score their goals from Kane and Son. And the problem with Arsenal is they haven't got anyone scoring up front at the moment. I think obviously they do lack a little bit of creativity, but I think that if you had your wide players scoring regularly, you had your central striker scoring regularly, it wouldn't be so much of an issue. But the forwards aren't doing it. So I think in terms of the transfer windows and how long will it take, I think, as I said, they've improved immeasurably when it comes to the midfield and the defence. But now this next one, they've got to sort out the attack, whether that's buying a new central striker, someone who can really hit the ground running, or is it whether buying a better option for either out left or right, because Pepe is an interesting one. Do Arsenal really put all their efforts into Pepe turning into a world-class player, or do they decide after 2 years to cut their losses and think about trying to sell and replacing him? So I think that it's going to be a really interesting transfer window this time round in terms of what Arsenal do in an attacking sense, because I think that's where we're going to see a lot of the movement next summer is going to be changing things going forward, because Arsenal just need to score more goals. It's as simple as that. Where am I? 500 Days of Arsenal says, can we integrate Ozil? Can't believe I've got this far without a Mesut Ozil question in the Premier League squad at some point. We can, but not till February. So basically, he's not registered now, and because Arsenal submitted their 25-man Premier League squad to the Premier League for the first half of the season, but they do need to submit another one at the end of the January transfer window. That's to allow clubs to incorporate any new signings they bring in January. So that's when the next squad goes in, and that's the squad that teams go with until the end of the season. So Ozil can be included in that, but not. That would be after the January transfer window's closed, so it wouldn't be until February that Mesut Ozil can play again. Will Arsenal do that? I highly doubt it. But you never know, but I highly doubt it. But in the answer to your question, then yeah, in February he can be integrated back into the Premier League squad. Lucas says, will Arsenal do any business in the January transfer window? I'm not sure if I've covered that in this one already, but I'd be surprised. It's certainly significant business. You never know, loans or something like that might happen. But I think Arsenal are much more likely to do significant business in the summer than they are in January. And not just Arsenal, I think all clubs. Look, COVID is just crippling finances. I know we said that in the summer and clubs still spent an awful lot of money in the summer. But January is notoriously hard to do deals anyway, really big deals. It's difficult. Clubs don't want to sell their players. And I think this January is going to be even tougher because of the financial stuff that is going on at the moment with football clubs. So, Arsenal spent pretty big in the summer, despite not having Champions League football. And I'll be surprised if they go really big again in January, just because it'll be very hard to get deals done. And like I said, a lot of clubs won't want to sell their best players in January. So it'd be much more likely for me that Arsenal wait. They save up their money. They're going to have a lot of money coming off the wage bill at the end of the season as well. And I think they'll try and sort of pocket their money, save it up, let it pile up a little bit until we get to next summer, and then have a really good go at sorting out what needs to be done in the transfer window. So for me, unlikely, but we'll have to wait and see. Spandan says, is Saliba more likely to go to a Premier League team or on loan to St Etienne? I think he'll go on loan to St Etienne in January. To be honest, it should have happened in the summer. Didn't for a few reasons. Ran out of time right on deadline day, but I think that one will be happening in January. Ogunawo Israel says, is Arteta getting it right at Arsenal, or we lack creativity? Look, I think Arteta is getting it right at Arsenal. I'm not going to sit here and slag Arteta off just because they played badly against Aston Villa. I think that Aston Villa game was really important in terms of how the start to the season was viewed. I think if Arsenal had won that, they'd have gone into this international break sitting 3 points off the top of the table, having played away at Liverpool, Man City and Man United, and having played Leicester at home. You look at that and say that's a good start to the season. I think the fact they lost makes it a pretty average start to the season. And it certainly sends us all into the international break on a bit of a downer. But I'm not going to sit here and slag Arteta off because of that. I think he's done a very good job. He's only been in the job for less than a year. He's won the FA Cup. He's made Arsenal much harder to beat, much more structured, much better defensively. I know against Aston Villa they're poor, but it was just a horrible off day for everyone. But I think on the whole, you can't look at what Arteta's done and say that he has not made progress in the first year at Arsenal. But now's the big challenge. Now he has to kick on again and make them even better. So I do think he's getting it right. Yes, Arsenal lack creativity and lacking goals. There's no secret. It's obvious for everyone to see, but I do think you've got to wait a little bit. Arsenal have spent a lot of money in the summer to improve things defensively and in midfield. I think next summer is when we're going to see them have a real go at changing things going forward. So a little bit of patience required. I know that's frustrating. We all want them to hit ground running and bang, go for the league title this season, but it's just not going to happen. They finished 8th last season. I've got 40 odd points off the top of the table. That's not a fluke, that's because they just simply weren't good enough. They were the 8th best team in the Premier League. You're not going to magically improve that overnight, so you've got to be a little bit patient. Zach says, any thoughts on how Mari and Chambers will be used after their returns? Interesting one. I mean, Chambers, Arteta really liked before the injury. He was playing him. There's certainly a spot up for grabs on the right-sided centre-back, I think, for Arsenal. Gabriel's obviously got the left-sided one nailed down. I still think Arsenal will switch to a back four fairly soon. I'm surprised they haven't done it yet. Mari will be the left-sided centre-back, and then it's who partners him on the right. You've got David Luiz, you've got Mustafi, Rob Holding. Saliba certainly looks like he's out of the equation for now, but hopefully will come into the equation from next season. And then you've got Callum Chambers, a naturally right-sided centre-back. Very good on the ball, good technique. Mikel Arteta liked him before the injury. The only issue is for me is that it takes a long time to recover from a cruciate injury. Even when you're back, it takes you about another year. We're only seeing Hector Bellerin get back towards the sort of player he was before the injury now, and he's been back around a year. Holding as well has struggled for his fitness since he's come back and hasn't looked as sharp as he was before the injury. So it takes a long time. It's such a brutal injury. It takes a long time. Mentally and physically for players to return, so it might take a while for Chambers to get back to what he was. In terms of Mari, look, it's hard. I can't judge Mari because I've just not seen him. He came here and got injured straight away. I think we're all in the same boat with that one. The interesting thing is obviously as a left-sided centre-back, and Gabriel now has come in and absolutely got that position nailed down. So whether Mari, we're going to see too much of Mari is probably doubtful, certainly in the Premier League. Timing-wise, it's not great for him coming in, getting an injury, and then Gabriel coming in straight away ahead of him. So I think if we are going to see Chambers and Mari used this season, it will be in the Cups and in the Europa League and as a sort of reserve injury backup for the main centre-backs in the team. Mark says, people have said Arteta is forward-thinking and innovative. I can never pronounce innovative. I'm not even going to say it. Of this is so. Do you honestly think he will find a solution to the current issues we are having in our attacking play? I do, but I think, as I said earlier, it's going to be a little bit. You got to be patient a little bit and wait, perhaps for a couple of new signings to arrive before Arsenal really get it right and really start playing the way Arteta wants in an attacking sense. I'm not sure they've got the players to do it at the moment, and so it's a case of needs must and getting through until the summer when perhaps they're going to sign a new centre forward. Perhaps they're going to bring in one, if not two, sort of creative wide players who like to come inside and interchange. And you kind of looked at that Aston Villa game and you looked at Grealish, McGinn, the way they were moving, Barkley as well. They weren't just staying out on the wings, they were coming around, they were interchanging. One was on the right, suddenly was on the left. They were all in. It kind of looked like Arsenal back in the day when you had Nasri floating around, Cesc floating around, Rosicky, Hleb, all rotating and making it really hard for the defenders to pick them up. And perhaps that's what we're going. It's kind of with Liverpool as well. You got Firmino in the centre, Mane and Salah, but when you watch them play, they're all over the place. And for Arsenal, it's very rigid at the moment, and it's very easy to defend against, it looks like. So I think, I do think Arteta will find a solution to it, but I think it might take a little bit of time and it might take a couple of new players before we really see Arsenal looking better going forward. 14 AFC says, can a Premier League club sign Balogun in January ahead of next season? They can if they pay money, but if you're talking about can they sign him or agree a pre-contract with him, no, only clubs from abroad can do that in January. Premier League clubs have to wait until his contract expires next season, but they can sign him in January if they want to come in and put some money on the table, which is probably doubtful given he's going to be available on a free transfer just a few months after that. Right, thank you everyone. That's the end. I'm going to cut this up. We're hitting about to hit the 20-minute mark, so I'm going to leave this one for now, and I will come back with part 3, which is going to be the final part of this Q&A tomorrow. Just to, as I said at the start, just cutting it up into these smaller sections so it's a little bit more watchable and easy viewing for you guys. Thank you very much, everyone. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, it's down there somewhere. Have a watch of it, and I will be back tomorrow with part 3. Thanks for watching. I'll speak to you soon.